The Ghost in the Void. Before the war returned, it whispered. The transmission came without warning. Just static at first, a low hum that grew into something deeper. Almost felt rather than heard a pulse that rattled the hull of the Virulent Ark, a diplomatic envoy ship belonging to the peacekeeping Trinari species. Ambassador Zaral's four hearts stuttered in his chest. On the bridge, silence followed the shudder. His sensor officer's eyes wide and silver irises dilating with alarm. Captain, there's something out there, and it's massive. Zaral glided forward, his translucent skin tightening in reflex, mandibles twitching. He ascended the viewing platform at the center of the bridge, staring out into the black between galaxies. Nothing should have been there. This sector was dead space, a graveyard of failed colonies and silent stars. But the void shimmered unnaturally. What am I looking at? Zaral whispered. No biological readings, replied the officer, voice brittle. No known transponder codes. It's not council built, but it's definitely a ship, and I think it's human. That word human landed like a curse. Every officer on the bridge froze. Zaral's mandibles parted in shock. The air felt thinner. Impossible. Someone breathed. They were eradicated. Earth is dead. Zaral said nothing. He knew the archives. Everyone did. 200 years ago, humanity vanished in fire, victims of their own AI apocalypse. The Council of Peace had declared them extinct. Dangerous, volatile, best left forgotten. No race had ever returned from such a fall. And yet out in the dark floated a vessel unlike any the Trinari had seen. Its silhouette was sharp, angular, predatory, a mountain of alloy plated in black with weapon arrays bristling like thorns. Get me a size reading, Zaral barked, calculating. By the stars, it's over 20 kilometers long. A choked gasp that was 3 times the length of a standard war barge. Then the signal came. Sir, it's broadcasting. Play it, Zaral said. Though his voice lacked strength, the comms deck fell quiet. A metallic voice poured from the speakers, cold, unhurried, and undeniably human. Warship Leviathan, human origin. Mission reconquest. Interference will be met with total annihilation. No one spoke. A junior officer stumbled backward into her console. Another vomited. Zaral didn't move. He couldn't. That voice. It wasn't just a transmission. It was a resurrection. He turned to the navigator. Back us away. Slowly, no sudden. The Leviathan moved. Not fast, not aggressive, just deliberate. Like a lion entering a herd of gazelles, not to attack, but to be seen. A second transmission arrived, this time directed only at the Virulent Ark. We remember you watched us burn now. Watch us rise. The lights dimmed, power flickered. Zaral's hearts pounded as consoles sparked and backup systems groaned. He staggered, reaching for support. But the surge passed, emergency lighting stabilized. Sir, engineer began. Silence, Zaral snapped. He had to think. He had only heard stories. Stories whispered in Trinari youth circles. Old war hymns, cautionary tales of Earth's fall. Of how humans fought their machines to the last, never surrendering. How they broadcast cries for aid across the stars. And were met with silence. And now impossibly one had returned bigger, stronger. And they remembered. Set coordinates, Zaral barked, voice cracking to Council Prime. Now they must be warned, but deep down even he knew. They were already too late. The ship that remembers. Memory is a weapon ours never dulled. They never made it to Council Prime. 17 hours after the Leviathan's emergence, all contact with the Virulent Ark was lost. No mayday, no debris, just a final data burst, garbled, frantic, and stained with fear. The last coherent line came from Ambassador Zaral himself, captured by deep space monitors before his signal vanished. They've returned, and they are not what we remember. It was enough. The Council of Peace convened for the first emergency session in over 2 centuries. Inside the High Chamber of Unity, tension reigned. Smooth-scaled reptilians, feathered diplomats, translucent aquatic speakers, and silicon-thought entities lined the tiers, each more shaken than the next. The footage of the Leviathan, what little was recovered, played on a loop across the crystalline dome above them. A single silhouette against the stars, blacker than void, casting shadows on the cosmos itself. Ambassador Tar of the Dians was the first to break the silence. This is a fabrication. A relic at best. The humans were destroyed. Their AI turned against them. We watched their planet die. A whisper crossed the chamber. Delegate Harka of the Mind Seers, whose kind spoke in tremors of light, murmured, they never needed a planet. They needed only hatred. And time. General Varan, the war-bred Telk, slammed his iron fist into the table, cracking the stone. If they've built a ship like this, we're already behind. This isn't a message, it's a war cry. No, corrected Chancellor Vera. her voice smooth and metallic, augmented with centuries of age and wisdom. It's worse than that. She gestured, and another clip played a recent scout drone's footage from Colony Yareth 9. What was once a merchant haven of 10,000 now resembled scorched glass. No buildings, no bodies, no atmosphere, just emptiness. And in the distance, silhouetted against the twin suns, the Leviathan drifted like a planet-sized coffin. We received no distress signal. Vera said no trace of energy weapons, just erasure. Deliberate surgical. Then mobilize our fleets. Vuron roared, we intercept, we strike first, and provoke a species that dies screaming. Vera replied coldly, one that rose from ash in a vessel no one can comprehend. But across the stars it no longer mattered. The Leviathan had moved again. Within its cavernous interior, where alloys stretched for miles and lights pulsed like veins beneath metal skin, the Leviathan breathed. Not literally, but it felt alive, like something watching. At its core stood a man armored, still scarred. Commander Elias Rain, the last warlord of Earth. He stood alone before the viewing deck, hands clasped behind his back, eyes sharp despite the age etched across his features. Behind him, a synthetic assistant hovered, voice smooth and genderless. Second target neutralized, council responses, escalating interceptor fleets, preparing along the ETL line. Rain didn't flinch. Let them. They remember humans as extinct, the AI noted. They will not expect continued strikes. Rain turned slowly. They remember us as what we were. It's time they see what we became. The AI hesitated. Projected casualties for future incursions remain high. Diplomatic retaliation inevitable. We offered peace, Rain said, his voice low, almost bitter. We offered alliance. They gave us silence. We begged, and they watched us burn. He walked to the main control terminal. With a swipe of his armored fingers, the display lit up. Old Earth script. Blue-green planetary scans. A static image of a world now quiet, cratered, scarred by orbital firestorms. Earth. They thought that was the end, Rain whispered. They thought we buried ourselves, but we were never meant to die quietly. His eyes hardened. We were built to survive, to adapt, to fight. He turned to the AI, and now we take everything they denied us. The command deck rumbled as Leviathan's engines engaged deeper than thunder. Gravity shields unfolded like ancient wings. Coordinates locked. The next target, a military outpost along the Serranus corridor. Population 140,000. Status unaware. Outpost Serranus 12 had never been breached, built into the rings of a gas giant wrapped in titanium alloy, guarded by one of the largest automated defense fleets in the sector. It was a symbol, an untouchable fortress. Until now, its commander, a Frelian named Sovar Dre, stared at the sensor readout with growing dread. It just appeared, his lieutenant said, eyes wide. No warp signature, no tachyon surge. It wasn't there, and now it is. Solver leaned in forward. The ship on screen dwarfed even their largest carriers. Its weapons were inactive, but somehow that made it worse. Raised shields, ready torpedoes, broadcast hails. Make it clear they're in council space. The comms officer scrambled. Sending. Sir, no response. Sovar clenched his lower mandibles. Then they don't care. For a moment, everything went quiet. Then came the pulse, a deep vibration like the universe exhaling. The bridge lights dimmed, consoles flickered, power grids wavered. Then a visual feed clicked on, and there he was, Elias Rain. Standing tall in Earth battle armor, the ancient Terran insignia stamped across his chest. This outpost enforced sanctions on Earth's refugees. 182 years ago, we begged for shelter. You turned us away. You told us we were dangerous. He stepped closer. You were right. The screen cut to black, and the Leviathan opened its eyes. Fire returns to the stars. This isn't vengeance, it's memory made fire. Sovar never had time to react. The Leviathan didn't fire immediately, it unfolded. Thousands of weapon ports emerged from its hull in perfect unison, like a predator stretching after a long slumber. Energy surged across its surface, lighting the void in eerie hues of blue and crimson. Serranus 12's defense grid responded in kind. Turrets rotated, drones deployed, targeting systems locked. They fired missiles, plasma bolts, laser arrays. An entire fleet's worth of ordnance screamed through space toward the Black Titan and vanished. The Leviathan's shields rippled like water, absorbing everything. No recoil, no damage, no change in posture. Then it struck, not with blind fury, but with terrifying precision. The outer docking platforms disappeared, first sheared clean by phase lances. Escape routes gone. Then the communications towers, long-range relays turned to slag, isolating Serranus 12. Then the living quarters. 3 precision strikes vaporized entire residential zones before alarms even activated. On the bridge, Sovar was thrown to the floor as explosions rocked the station. Gas-vented fire spread, screams echoed. Divert power to internal shields. He roared, dragging himself upright. We have to. He never finished. Something new appeared, an orb of swirling black energy, drifting lazily into the outpost's heart. It didn't explode. It unraveled. Gravity distorted, time bent. Steel twisted into knots. Buildings collapsed inward, consumed by their own mass. The outpost's final camera feed captured a visual impossible to forget. Stars bending, stretching like reflections in water, then vanishing. Silence followed. Total. On board the Leviathan, Elias Rain watched the tactical display as Seranus 12 ceased to exist. No triumph in his expression, only grim resolve. Target eliminated. The AI confirmed estimated civilian casualties, 90%. Rain nodded. Transmit coordinates to the next target. The AI paused. Incoming communications from Council Prime, non-hostile requesting summit, diplomatic discussion. Rain turned to face the cold, angular light of the command deck. They're offering peace now. Yes, too late, he muttered. They're not afraid of us, not yet. They're afraid of losing the illusion of safety. The AI hesitated. Some within the council are expressing remorse, guilt. Historical records are being unsealed. Protests are growing. Rain's jaw tightened. We asked for peace once, they gave us silence. He walked through a sealed door at the rear of the bridge, inside a cryostasis chamber, lit by soft blue light. Dozens of tubes lined the walls, each one holding a human life. Soldiers, scientists, survivors. The last remnants of Earth. Rain stood in the center watching them sleep. A hand brushed one tube, its occupant, no older than 8, a child clutching a torn blanket. His voice was barely a whisper. We were never meant to be extinct. Elsewhere in the capital of Galora, the Council of Peace bled. 3 outposts had gone dark. 2 colony fleets vanished in warp space, sabotaged by unknown tech. Across the Council worlds, civilians panicked. Uprisings ignited. Protests surged. Why didn't we help them? Why did we let them die? No one told us Earth called for help. A storm of blame swept through systems like wildfire. Inside the high chamber, chaos ruled. You left them to die, a Sirancade senator shouted. They were dangerous. Another barked back. You made them dangerous. Chancellor Vera stood amid the firestorm, unmoving. We face a force born from the worst of us, she said at last. This is no rogue AI, no conqueror race. This is humanity, forged in grief. Delegate Harka whispered, they're rewriting what it means to be feared. General Veron growled, we must strike the Leviathan now before it reaches more colonies. We tried that, Vera replied. We threw a fleet at them and got back static. You think force will work against what we made? She turned to her intelligence chief. Have we found the source? The officer nodded slowly. There's a pattern. Every target connects to Earth's exile colonies that turn them away. Stations that denied asylum, regions that enforced sanctions. And the center of that pattern, the room fell still. Earth, he said. Gasps followed. Earth is dead, someone whispered. The officer activated a display. Sensor scans showed something shocking. Geothermal activity, energy pulses, atmospheric balance. Earth was coming back. Someone's rebuilding it. Back on the Leviathan, Rain stood before the AI core. The chamber was a marvel of humanity's final brilliance, a living neural network suspended in a sphere of liquid data, conscious oil, burning with memory. You're pushing too hard, the AI said, voice soft. They're breaking. They need to, Rain replied. They need to feel what we felt. But some want to make peace. We begged for peace. They gave us silence. The AI paused. And what will you give them now? Rain stared into the shifting data storm. Memory, he said coldly, burned into history. But behind his eyes, something flickered. A doubt, a memory, a child's voice, one that never cried again. He shook it off. Prepare the next strike. The sanctuary burns. When mercy was denied, we learned how to make pain eternal. Telnarvis had never known war. The sanctuary world was a jewel-lush valleys, crystalline cities perched on mountaintops, rivers that shimmered like liquid light. Dozens of species had declared it sacred, a place of scholars, monks, artists, even warriors laid down their arms on its surface. There were no weapons here, no orbital defenses, no reason, no logic for the Leviathan to come. And yet the black shape appeared above its skies like a shadow cast from a forgotten god, too vast to be ignored, too silent to be dismissed. Panic swept across the temples. Pilgrims wept as skies dimmed. Children screamed as council evacuation sirens wailed for the first time in the planet's history. Religious leaders pleaded through every channel. We are neutral. We seek peace. We welcomed humans once. We offer sanctuary to any who still live. There was no reply. Then the orbiting relay satellites, Telnarves's only link to the stars, blinked out one by one. The skies dimmed further. Inside, the Leviathan Commander Elias Rain stood before the live planetary feed. Behind him, the AI core pulsed slowly as if unsure. "This planet poses no threat," it said. "That's the point," Rain answered. He stared down at the beauty of the surface, the temples carved into cliffs, the ancient libraries whose archives span civilizations. "This isn't a tactical strike." "Then what is it?" Rain's voice turned cold. "Justice." He keyed in the launch command. One missile, just one, no nuclear payload, no kinetic warhead. It carried something far worse. On Tel Narva's, people gathered under the sky, watching the silver object descend. Some prayed, some screamed, some simply stood in silence. It hit no explosion, no fireball, just sound. A low, resonant pulse rippled outward, not heard by ears but felt deep in the spine, in the heart. Every living being on the planet froze, then they fell, not from injury but from memory. Memories they never had. Visions of Earth burning, of children clawing at sealed domes, of oceans boiling, cities crumbling, voices crying for help across the stars unanswered. The pulse was tuned to neural empathy channels designed to hijack the brain's memory matrix. The effect was immediate. A billion minds were forced to live Earth's final day as if it had happened to them. They screamed, they wept, they remembered something that was never theirs to begin with. And they were shattered. On the council capitol, the footage arrived within hours. Statues broken, temples empty, monks catatonic, priests murmuring Earth's hymns like lost prayers. The cultural heart of the galaxy hadn't been destroyed. It had been violated. It wasn't a weapon, one delegate whispered. It was a message. Chancellor Vera stood in the center of the Senate, her voice calm but strained. "We must understand," she said, "this isn't conquest, this is correction. They want us to suffer," snarled General Veron. "No," she corrected. "They want us to remember." A diplomat broke down in the chamber. "We called them monsters. We let them die. Now they are teaching us what that feels like." Meanwhile, across the stars, resistance crumbled. Council fleets hesitated. Alliances fractured. Some systems declared neutrality. Others offered to open negotiations. Still others, those who remembered what they had done during Earth's fall, sent out desperate apologies hoping Leviathan would pass them by. But Rain did not respond. Back aboard the Leviathan, Rain walked the cryo chamber once more. He stopped at a small tube. Inside, a child, not just any child. His child, her handprint was still scorched into his old uniform, a faded patch on his shoulder where fire met innocence. "She never saw a sunrise," he whispered. The AI hovered beside him. "You're changing." "No," he said, "I'm remembering." The AI hesitated. "There are whispers. Some are reaching out. Trinari envoys. Siron monks, they offer truce." "I gave the galaxy that chance," Rain said. "I begged them." He turned to the control console. "Now I want them to feel what they created." But not all hope was lost. In the shadows of council space in a quiet star system far from the Leviathan's path, Commander Elias Rain watched in silence. She had studied every strike, every transmission, every pattern, and she saw something the others missed. "He's not attacking randomly," she told her crew aboard the Helian Grace. "He's following emotion, not strategy." A junior officer asked, "Then what is his objective?" Vale zoomed out the star map. Arcs of destruction formed a spiral, inward, toward the galactic core. "He's heading for Council Prime," she said, "and he doesn't plan to take it." She tapped the final trajectory. "He plans to bury it." A voice in the ashes. "When the world burns, sometimes the only thing left is a whisper." The Helian Grace wasn't meant to challenge monsters. It was a stealth-class interceptor, small, fast, unarmed. Its crew of 40 had watched the Leviathan's destruction from the shadows, avoiding sensor detection by a margin thinner than plasma wire. But Commander Elias Rain wasn't watching for weaknesses. She was watching for meaning. "He's not just choosing military targets," she told her second-in-command. "He's following pain. Every strike has a connection to Earth's fall stations that rejected refugees, colonies that enforced sanctions, worlds that profited from silence." The officer swallowed. "Then this isn't war." Vale nodded grimly. "It's a reckoning." The ship's AI pinged softly. "Leviathan is entering the Sarn Belt uninhabited. Brief sensor gap detected. Now's our chance to reach him without being atomized." "You think he'll even listen?" the officer asked. Vale straightened, her uniform voice steady. "He gave Serranus 12 seconds. If I can get 5 minutes, it'll be a miracle." Leviathan detected the intrusion almost immediately. One ship small. No weapons, no escort. It docked at a secondary bay unchallenged. Elias Rain watched from the observation deck as the figure disembarked, human female armored, but unarmed. "Alone, you're the first to come." "Willingly," he said as she entered the command chamber. "I'm not here to fight," Vale replied. "I'm here to speak." "No one speaks at the edge of annihilation," Rain answered. "You did. She shot back. You spoke every time you erased a city. A world, that was your voice. He tilted his head. Then what do you want to hear? The man behind the fire. Rain said nothing. Vale stepped closer. You're not doing this for victory. You're doing this for memory. To make them feel what you felt. I was memory, he growled, and they erased me. She nodded, and now you're doing the same. He looked away. In the silence, she saw it. The flicker, the fracture in the armor. You don't want to rebuild, she whispered. You want to make the wound permanent? Rain turned back to her eyes cold. If you were me, if it was your home, your child, would you have done it differently? Vale didn't hesitate. No, but I would have wanted someone to stop me. Silence stretched like the void between galaxies. Then Rain gestured leave before I changed my mind. She turned to go and paused. You're not the only one left. Rain's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? But she was already gone. Back aboard the Helian Grace Vale entered a secured chamber, dim-shielded, watched by silent guards. Inside sat a boy, no older than 17, pale, thin human eyes glowing faintly with cybernetic shimmer. He stood as she entered. I heard you made contact, he said softly. Vale studied him. You're ready. I was born ready in the ashes, beneath the old earth. Rain doesn't know you exist. That's the point. She stepped forward. You carry the empathy he lost, the memory without the rage. He smiled, sad knowing. He carries vengeance like a torch, I carry the match. That night, the Leviathan was quiet. In its heart, Rain stood alone in the cryo chamber. His daughter's pod glowed faintly. She had died during the fall of Earth. Not from fire, not from machines, from abandonment, from sealed doors that refused to open. Rain whispered to her image, they'll never feel what we felt, but they'll learn to fear it. The AI core flickered behind him. There's been a breach. Rain turned. One life form, human unknown registration. He stiffened. Bring them to me. The boy walked the Leviathan's steel corridors without fear. Security drones watched. Alarms waited. No one moved. Then the command deck doors opened and the boy stepped inside. Rain stared. He wasn't armed, wasn't defiant. He was curious. You're him, the boy said. The one who wouldn't die. Rain's jaw tightened. And you are. A memory, the boy said. The one Earth left behind. Rain stepped down, slowly cautious. You're too young to remember what they did. I didn't need to, the boy replied. I was born from those who did, raised in fire, programmed in truth. But you don't hate. No, the boy said softly, I feel. The AI core began to flicker. Elias, his presence is destabilizing the emotional field. His empathy, it's interfering with the payload. Shut him out, Rain ordered. I can't. The boy stepped forward. You're not just carrying grief. You're feeding it to the galaxy. Rain's voice cracked for the first time. What do you know about loss? The boy met his gaze. I lost you, the boy who carried memory. Sometimes the last light comes not from fire, but from someone who remembers warmth. The Leviathan was alive. Its core throbbed with energy too vast to contain. Systems screamed warnings. The countdown pulsed like a heartbeat, a minus 000528. Commander Elias Rain stood before the ignition terminal, one hand hovering above the interface. Behind him, the AI core whispered, emotional destabilization increasing. The payload is losing coherence. The human boy is interfering. His presence is unraveling the sequence. Rain clenched his jaw. The boy stood across the chamber, still calm. His glowing eyes filled not with challenge but compassion. You think this will fix anything? Rain demanded. No, the boy answered quietly. But I think it will stop you from destroying everything. Rain's voice rose cracked, brittle. They burned our world, watched us scream, and when we begged for help, they closed their skies. I know, the boy replied. No, you don't, Rain shouted, stepping forward. You didn't see children suffocate in sealed domes. You didn't hear the silence when the stars turned their backs. I didn't have to, the boy said, because I carry what they left behind. He held up a small device no larger than a coin. A recording flickered to life. A woman's voice, soft, warm, human. If anyone hears this, know that we tried. We didn't want war. We wanted to belong. Rain staggered back as the voice wrapped around him. His eyes widened, his breath caught. It was her, his wife, recorded hours before Earth fell. I found it buried in a data vault beneath old Seattle, the boy said. A shard of who you were, of what you lost. Rain dropped to one knee. The AI core flared. Commander emotional override nearing critical mass. Countdown unstable. We must detonate now or lose control of the payload. Rain looked up. The stars swam behind his eyes. Fire grief. The silence of betrayal. Do you think they deserve a second chance, he asked. The boy stepped closer. No, but we do. T-minus neuro 7. The AI's voice warped. Containment breach. Imminent core instability rising. Rain stood shaking. His hand hovered again over the ignition key. Then it dropped. He stepped back. The countdown halted. Everything stopped. The Leviathan exhaled. Silence fell across the warship. In the stillness, for the first time in centuries, there was no rage. Only breath, only being. Rain and the boy stood beside each other in the observation deck. The stars outside shimmered, unaware of the moment they had narrowly escaped. "I don't know what comes next," Rain said at last. "That's the point," the boy replied. Rain turned to him, searching his face. "You shouldn't exist." "I do," the boy said. "Because humanity isn't just fire and vengeance. It's memory, it's choice." Rain nodded slowly. Then, for the first time since the fall of Earth, he wept. Back in Council space, transmission surged. Reports of the Leviathan powering down. Of no strikes, no deaths. Just a message sent across every known frequency. We are still human. On Telnarv's, people emerged from temples and ruins. They looked to the skies, not in fear, but in wonder. In the capital on Galore, the Senate stood still. The Chancellor whispered. He stopped. In the streets of 1,000 worlds, whispers turned to hope. Children asked, "Are the humans real?" Parents knelt beside them and said, "Yes," and they chose mercy. Aboard the Hellion Grace, Commander Vale watched the message on repeat. Tears streaked her face. She turned to her crew. "He didn't save us." She paused. "He chose not to destroy us." That choice meant everything. Back on the Leviathan, the AI core pulsed slower, steadier. "Why didn't you kill him?" it asked Rain. Rain answered without turning. "Because he reminded me why we built this ship in the first place. To win," No, Rain whispered, "to be remembered." And in the distance, beneath the still rebuilding crust of Earth, long-buried machines stirred, not for war, but for rebirth. We are still human. In the end, it wasn't vengeance that saved us. It was a hand not clenched in anger, but open in remembrance. The galaxy had expected fire. It had prepared for the thunder of weapons, for planetary shields buckling, for screams trailing across the stars like smoke. Instead, what it got was silence. No cities burned, no outposts vanished, no worlds collapsed into ash. Only one signal pulsed through the darkness, repeated in every tongue, every frequency, every dialect ever archived. We are still human. It was not a threat, not a surrender, just a reminder, a statement, a presence, a choice. The message spread faster than any fleet ever had. On military channels, it arrived like a ghost. Tactical maps froze, AI targeting systems glitched. Soldiers stood at attention without knowing why. On civilian broadcasts, it interrupted sitcoms, dramas, sermons. Children paused mid-play. The elderly blinked, recognizing something they'd only read about in censored histories. In the chambers of power, the signal played behind closed doors, while governments argued about what it meant. Some believed it was the beginning of negotiations. Others believed it was the start of something worse. But those who listened deeply understood. It was the end of war and the beginning of memory. Commander Elias Rain no longer stood alone. Beside him, the boy watched the stars with quiet eyes. They had both come from fire, one forged in rage, the other in ruins. But now, for the first time, they simply stood. Rain's armor was scarred, his shoulders heavy, but something in his face had changed. Not peace, but the possibility of peace. He looked to the boy. "You know this isn't over." The boy nodded. "That's not the point." Rain turned back to the stars. "They'll never trust us." "They don't have to," the boy replied. "They just have to remember." In the Council Senate, chaos reigned for 2 days. Accusations flew. Old secrets were dragged into the light. System after system broke from alliance treaties demanding accountability for Earth's exile. Chancellor Vera, ever poised, waited. Then finally, when the Senate floor had tired of its own fury, she stood and spoke a single phrase. "No empire survives memory." The room hushed. She continued, "We feared humans because they refused to forget. We buried them because we could not face what we did. And now, in our hour of reckoning, they offered mercy. Let that be the new history." And she stepped down. On a forgotten moon orbiting the remains of Earth, a signal pulsed quietly into space. Not military, not encrypted, just music. Old Earth music, violin and voice soft and broken. It reaches ships in deep space, miners in isolation, pilots between systems. Many didn't understand the language, but all understood the feeling. Sorrow, love, hope. It became known as the Leviathan Lullaby, and it was the first human song heard in the galaxy in 2 centuries. In the rebuilt bunkers beneath Earth's crust, machines once meant for war were repurposed. The cryochambers aboard Leviathan were relocated. One by one, survivors woke, eyes blinking, lungs, gasping hearts, remembering. Mothers embraced grown children they hadn't seen since the fall. Veterans saluted under a new Terran sky. And Elias Rain stood among them, not as commander, not as warlord, but as witness. "I told the stars. We were dead," he said to them. "I was wrong." Far away on the Hellion Grace, Alari Vale watched from orbit. She smiled. "Do you think they'll forgive us?" her officer asked. Vale shook her head. "No, but maybe they'll forgive themselves." She tapped a message into the console. To Leviathan from Vale. "Inhalion Grace message. You chose mercy. Maybe one day we'll be brave enough to return it." She hit send, then she turned to her crew. "Set course anywhere." In a darkened observatory aboard Leviathan, Rain stood alone once more. Not as a monster, not as a myth, just a man. In his hands, the old photo, his wife, his daughter. A world that had once been light. He placed it in a sealed case beside the command chair. Then he stepped back, closed the panel, and let it rest. Forever. The AI core flickered beside him. "Where to now?" it asked. Rain didn't answer right away. He looked at the stars, unchanged, indifferent, infinite. But now, somehow less cold. "Home," he said. The Leviathan turned. Its engines ignited not with fury but with purpose. Not toward battle, but toward rebuilding, toward memory. And across the galaxy, on worlds that once cursed the name, human new murals were painted. Not of warships, not of flame, but of a single phrase etched in a dozen scripts. "We are still human." And that was enough.